I really had no clue what the response would be, but I knew that I had something to share. And I also knew that I had an opportunity to captivate people's attention. And so I used that 6 minutes, and that's all that it was. And literally that 6 minutes turned into the rest of my life.
You're in for a treat today on the Courageous Podcast. We were joined by Brandon Farbstein, who is a Gen Z activist, an amazing 21-year-old who was born with the rare form of dwarfism.
Yeah, I mean, talk about inspiring. Brandon was awesome. And so at such a young age, too. I feel like the knowledge he has, I may not even have till I'm 60. His EQ and the story that he shares with us is just a great one for any listener to really understand how to get through a struggle and come out the other side and really influence some positivity into the world.
Yeah, there's under 100 people on the planet who are, I guess he's 3'9", and again, imagine being stared at through middle school and high school, and how he turns that into his life's purpose, and how he's actually going now and even to Congress and work in EQ as a mandated teaching tool. Pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things he says is that self-care is not a privilege, it's a priority. And I love that. And I think that's super relevant for the times we're in. And we hope you get something out of this episode.
I also really enjoyed his take on, does he have a disability, and his answer to that. I thought that was rather fascinating.
Enjoy.
Thompson, we're in for a treat today.
I'm ready.
The world is a funny place, Brandon. If you think about how you and I met, you remember where we actually met?
Yeah, we were in San Diego, downtown, right?
Yeah, but do you know you were meeting with like Tony Robbins, head of social media?
Yeah.
And I had seen your stuff online and was like, just walking in to get a cup of coffee. And then as this is very normal for me, Thompson will attest, I chose to just bombard into their conversation. And I'm like, hey, is your name Brandon? And that was kind of how we met. And you guys kind of just dealt with me in a nice way. And I was like, Brandon, we have to talk because, well, one, I wanted to talk because I had an opportunity for you to keynote back in San Diego, which you did an amazing job on. But then also just, when I think of courage, I think your story is a courageous one. And maybe we could start there. Can you share a little bit about who you are and, what you've been up to?
Absolutely. Yeah. That story seriously is such a cool thing to think back on. But it shows that things are a lot more connected than we may think they are on the surface. So a little bit about me. My name is Brandon Farbstein, and I'm a 21-year-old motivational speaker, Gen Z activist, and influencer. And I am one of 84 people in medical history to be diagnosed with a very rare form of dwarfism called metatropic dysplasia. And what that means for me specifically is my height is 3'9", and this is the size that I'm going to be for the rest of my life. And from a very young age, not only did I hate being different and standing out, but I knew very quickly there was no roadmap. There was no blueprint for me to follow to emulate. And so I had a turning point when I was 11 and was very close to ending my life because I was so tired of the suffering and being in so much pain emotionally and physically, and not thinking that my life would be anything but that darkness and suffering. And it was through that experience that I was able to get the professional help that really helped me see that I wasn't alone. And what I mean by that is we all at some point are dealing with something. And for somebody like me, it's hyper visible, and I can't try and hide my difference, hide the fact that I look the way that I do. But for a lot of people, it's internal, and they're not able to clearly show people, and it takes a lot to tap into that. And so when I was able to realize that I wasn't alone, I kind of felt the weight and the overwhelming pressure start to lift off of my shoulders. And then when I was 15, I had the opportunity to share my story for the very first time, which happened to be on the TedX stage. And that was literally the first time that I was vulnerable, I was authentic, and it was in that moment that I found my purpose and my mission in life. And 6 years later, I've been able to follow that, turn that into a profession, and now impact tens of millions of people all over the world.
And again, I remember you sharing this part of the story with me, but it's fascinating that you had to go through it. Like, I'm really curious why you felt like there's something inside you that's like, I've never done a talk before. And if you think about, like, you would also mention to me, like, everywhere you went, people would stare. And yet the one place you decided to share yourself is where everyone's going to stare. You're going to be on a TEDx stage. So why did you feel like you had to do it? And like, how nervous were you, or were you excited, or did you feel like, let me just get this out of me?
I don't think I was nervous. I think what the biggest emotion that I was facing is the uncertainty of not knowing what the response would be to being vulnerable. Because at that point, I was a freshman in high school, and it was probably at least halfway through my first year of being in high school, and the cyberbullying began the very first week of my freshman year. And so I was very hesitant in opening up and being just vulnerable about what I was going through, because I thought that was going to be used against me as more fuel and more hate and harassment. But what ended up happening was, through sharing my story, which I knew was obviously uniquely mine, but so many people were able to relate to it and relate to parts of myself that they saw within me. And so what I learned through that is we all experience the same emotions. And that's what it means to be a human being. If we could really share that and be real about what we're going through while we're going through it, I think it takes the burden off of dealing with things and feeling like we have to do it alone. And so I really had no clue what the response would be, but I knew that I had something to share. And I also knew that I had an opportunity to captivate people's attention. And so I used that 6 minutes, and that's all that it was. And I mean, literally that 6 minutes turned into the rest of my life.
You're 21, and I wish I had that EQ when I was 21, honestly. I mean, because like you said, we're all human beings. We all have emotions, and so many people are wearing these masks or put on a facade, and you don't really know what the internal turmoil is like. I mean, you know what it is personally, but maybe you don't know that everybody else is, kind of having this shared experience. And you talked about getting support when you were 11, right? And I'm just wondering, what did that do for you? Because I know how important that can be, to just allowing yourself to know that it's okay. And could you just talk to us a little bit about what that felt like? And, it obviously got you on a new path, because, and we're glad you're here. But I feel like so many people are going through this, but like the eye-opening thing is like how young you were,
Yeah.
and how intelligent you were to be able to understand that. So could you just share a little bit more about that?
It's really interesting, that process and kind of finding somebody that I finally felt comfortable with enough to open up to on a level where I felt like I was being seen and heard. And I think it took me 5 or 6 therapists and counselors before I finally found one that I was comfortable enough with. But I also felt like they had the EQ and the ability to not necessarily understand what it's like to be in my shoes, but to have that empathy and just tap into what it's like to be a human. And so it, like I said before, that burden being lifted, I think is the best way to describe it, because I felt like before that experience, before I had the opportunity to start just opening up and getting therapy, I felt like nobody would be able to relate to what I had going on, to my story. And that was the farthest thing from the truth. And so I felt like, well, no, looking back, I think I made things worse for myself, being kind of trapped in my own head, and also kind of standing in my own way, thinking that people were having negative perceptions of me, or saying things, or like just reacting in a way that I felt attacked by. But sometimes that wasn't the case. And it was my own emotional baggage, whatever you want to call it, before it was dealt with, that was really dictating the life that I used to live. And so I used to be extremely angry, and I was a dick to people. And like, I'll be fully open about that. My middle school years, guys, so bad. And I know that it could be, a lot of people can say the same. But I just was so frustrated. I was so empty, and I had no ability to express that in a way that I felt recognized for being Brandon. And so my way of reacting was really negatively. And it definitely was the wrong way to treat the situation, to treat my life. Fighting fire with gasoline is never a good idea. And looking back, I definitely, um I wish I could have given myself more empathy and more space to actually feel those feelings, so that I didn't have to treat people like garbage.
I think if I was a betting man, though, Brandon, I would say you're being awfully hard on yourself in the grand scheme of
Yeah.
things here. Look, it's so funny. I like often when I'm doing like keynotes now, I'll ask, when was the last time you went back and you walked the hallways of your high school? And like, I remember back when you could actually do that in non-COVID days, like walking to my high school and I'm like, this is what I was afraid of. So I think we're all doing like the best we can to survive. And I agree with what Ryan Thompson said about, like, the fact that you're where you are at 21. And I remember speaking at Creative Mornings in San Diego. I think I was 40, and being like excited that I could finally be me. And I felt like the next version of me was ready to come out and play, and I couldn't be me until that moment. It's definitely said this on the show before. Like, it takes you 40 years to figure out who you are, and the next 40 to be that person. You're way ahead on that, in my opinion. But I guess my point is, like, for me, it took a lot longer to address my baggage, address myself, so I could go out and be myself. And like you said, because of the circumstance, people are staring at you. You had no choice but to address it. Now, talk a little bit about your book, about 10 Feet Tall, if you don't mind. Like, I'd love to hear why you wrote it, and I'd also like to hear what you thought of the process.
Good question. Because the process was freaking brutal. I am not somebody that does well with I don't even know what you want to call it, but I lacked the ability to sit myself down and put thoughts to, like, putting just thoughts out of me. And so I was really definitely standing in my own way when it came to that, until I found an editor to work with from the beginning of the process, where we met for the first couple of times to figure out what topics, what chapters I wanted the basic framework of the book to be. And then she came up with a list of questions on each chapter and each kind of subset, and would figure out how to extract the best perspective, the best insights that I had to offer on that specific area. So for me, that was the most beneficial thing that I could have done in order to just get it out there. And so what I wanted my book to be on was not just a story about my life and my experience, but how through my unique journey that I've been on, and all of the different experiences that I've lived, the things that I've picked up on, and the different tools and the mindset hacks and strategies just to push through and keep going. And that's what it means to step into your truth. And that's also what it takes to change the world, because once we're able to do that and harness what we really bring to the table, we're unstoppable, and that's what the world needs from us. And so it's basically a guide and a roadmap to overcoming adversity and tapping into your greatest assets, which is you and your story and your vulnerability and authenticity. And through my journey and sharing specific stories of how I learned those things, but also how you can too. And again, how it's truly universal for teens, for adults, and anyone who's looking to step into the greatest version of themselves.
Did you have an unlock during the process? Like, was there a certain unlock for you that you're like, oh wow, like I'm so glad that we went through this process because all of this has led to blank for you?
I think the biggest mindset reframe that it allowed me to do was recognize that, yes, I'm young, yes, like all of these things. Who am I? That's where the imposter syndrome was very, very prevalent in my life. And I was able to, through that process of just getting things out and sharing what I was passionate about and what was on my mind, I was able to really see that my story was worth sharing, number one, but people also needed to hear it because it had such transformational messages in it that I knew just had to be heard by people. And so that was the biggest mindset shift that I think was really beneficial for not only the book, but everything subsequently thereafter too.
I'd like to just go back to the cyberbullying, and that's such a big issue. I mean, bullying. I remember being bullied in high school. I think lots of people went through that, and it's just so much easier to do now. And mean people or people, hateful people, are usually just hurt. And so I'm curious, I guess, on two things. One, how did you get rid of your own anger? Because you said you were pretty angry in middle school, right? And mean to other people. And then with the cyberbullying, how did you apply what you learned there to, help others in that space? Because you can pay attention to it or you don't have to, right? So
For sure.
how are you helping others, kind of with the path that you went through and in that digital environment now?
Yeah. To answer that first part, how did I kind of unpack that anger and release it? It really was through personal development and being able to get control of my own thoughts and not getting overwhelmed by my past or PTSD or different triggers that would come up, but really learning how to become a master of your own mind. And so that's what helped me, I think, the most in terms of getting past that anger period and releasing it to be something productive, because it was through that I was also able to forgive those individuals that hurt me the most. And so I released all of that in addition. And then to answer the second question, what you said before, Ryan, hurt people. Like ultimately, if we can understand that unless this cycle is broken at some point and somebody steps in a pretty major way to say, this isn't okay, you have to stop, you can't treat people like this, you can't say a comment that hurtful or whatever, because it has consequences and there's somebody on the other side of that screen. I think helping young people, especially, just remember how much power is in all of our hands, like literally every single day through social media, through our phones, and we have the choice in how we use it. And so that's not to get overwhelmed and to put all this pressure on yourself. How can I be a change maker? How can I like go do all of these things? You don't need to do that if you don't want to. But if you could say, I want to use my platform and have the best experience possible, it I think it's just truly about also curating and filtering who you follow and who you allow to have that influence on you. So it's sometimes it's a conscious effort that we could make that makes a difference in terms of the external noise and not letting cyberbullying and hate take over. But a lot of it too is recognizing that sometimes we can't shake it off. Words freaking hurt. And we have to acknowledge, like, if we are feeling negatively, if we're feeling hurt by something, we have to be able to process that and actually feel that. And so I think it's beyond ignoring and blocking, but being able to let it go and not personalize it too, which is really important, especially for teenagers who think so highly about social media, what people think of them, comments, that sort of thing. So I just think it's about awareness, and the more too that parents can model how to properly use social media and be empathetic. It's kind of as simple as that.
Well, I mean, you're obviously using the tools and channels for a positive reason, and you're very influential. And I'm just wondering, are there things that, now you've been on this path, are there things that, or themes that you're hearing, or things that you talk to others that have heard you speak or have reached out to you, that we can use to be more proactive in our approach to this education? Is there something we should be doing in the school system?
It's a really good question. Yes and no. So to answer the yes part, I helped pass 2 laws in Virginia where I grew up. One that requires empathy and EQ to be taught in every single public school in the state. And so while I definitely don't think that's a blanket answer or a blanket solution, it is absolutely a step in the right direction of planting the seeds of empathy, planting the seeds of what it looks like to be a person that spreads light, that spreads positivity, spreads optimism. And so I think the more that we could make EQ a part of curriculum, both in school and just parents, again, emulating and modeling as much as possible, I'm not a parent, and I don't want to try and act like I know what it's like to be a parent. But from my perspective, I do think that is such a powerful tool that you can use, because your kids are watching your every move, and you don't need me to remind you that, but maybe you do. And if if you could just remember that the person standing right across from you is a sponge, and they're soaking all of that in, all of the things. And like, I keep going back to empathy, empathy, empathy. I genuinely think empathy is the foundation to human connection, and empathy is what it takes to make somebody else not feel alone. And so that's why I'm such a proponent of empathy. And to round out that answer, I think the more empathy education we could put out is a huge solution and a huge step in the right direction. But the answer is also no, because there is no one size fits all. There is no kind of answer to fixing cyberbullying or to fixing bullying, because just like you said before, it's always existed. It is always going to exist. And so people like me are not out there trying to stop bullying, because I know bullying is not going to just one day stop. But what we have to do is be proactive to understanding, all right, if we could see human behaviors are aligning this way, that these people are lashing out, these people are clearly modeling in behaviors of bullying and harassment and whatever, then we'll be able, I think, to address it in a better way, full picture, where mental health is also a huge part of it, because it is, going back to what I said, hurt people hurt people. So hopefully that answers that.
Yeah, I love that comment. I mean, Berman actually says that line all the time, and it's true. I mean, I was just thinking about what you were saying, you know, about parenting, and you're not a parent. I'm a parent. Ryan's a parent, and no one tells you how hard it is to be a parent. There's no playbook. I mean, there probably is, but there's no real playbook on that you're given before you have to have a child. You don't have to take courses unless you elect to do them. And so I do think it is interesting that you went and pushed for legislation to be passed, because it is important to learn about this, but it's almost like it should be a continuing education, right? You are a child. You do have parents, right? That's how you're here.
Absolutely.
So you do have an experience in understanding that. And yeah, I think understanding that there's always gonna be bullies in the world. But the interesting thing I think you said before is that you can't personalize that. If you can just get to a place where you understand that's not about me, that's about something they're dealing with, which is really hard to do, because it's very easy to react. And like you said, words hurt, right? So still fascinated at you only being in your early 20s that you've accomplished all this and understand all this. Cause like Ryan said, I mean, I'm going to be 40 next year, and it's taken me 40 years to get to where you are too.
I mean, I chuckled. I honestly chuckled, because I'm like, well, what did you do this weekend? Oh, well, you know, I just try to get the law changed in Virginia. What about you? Well, I binge watched this new show on Netflix.
I do that too.
No, but what, like if you really break that up, if you really like think through, because you don't want to we're not going to vilify people for watching Netflix, by the way. Like, especially now, like we kind of need a little bit of escapism
for sure
in this crazy world. But I think at the root of it is the why. Like, why did you feel the need, right? And it's obvious, right, from your own experiences, the need to go do this. And it comes down to passion and purpose. And and again, same thing. Like, I'm madly passionate about these conversations. Thompson is too. It's like we love hearing stories like this, Brandon, where it's like, yeah, the cards were dealt. These right. It's like here we go, and at 21, you're going and changing the law first in Virginia. And maybe this is a good segue to the question, which is, okay, at 42. Now I don't want to put any extra burden on you, but like your purpose is what, and how you going about achieving that, and how can we help?
First off, I don't think it's putting any pressure on me. I think it's just more motivation for me to see what is possible in terms of the level of impact that I'm able to make with my life, which is ultimately what I'm here to do. And so purpose wise, I I know that I was put here to help shift the lens through which people see their own world and also see themselves. And so it's through this vessel that I'm in, through this, very unique body, that I think I'm able to get your attention, and I'm able to keep it in a way that you're going to listen to what I have to say. And obviously it's a little bit different virtually versus when there's a 3'9" guy in front of you on stage, who's as charming and good looking as I am. Um, and I think yeah, for me, it's just been about understanding that it's totally okay to be different. It's totally okay to be every bit of who I am. And that's the magic of authenticity, because authenticity is genuinely a superpower. And I want to keep being this person, being this role model. And the biggest thing that lights me up is getting to be who I needed when I was at my darkest and my lowest, for other people. And whether they have a disability or a difference or not, being that light is what keeps me going and what fuels my mission every day. And so I want to continue being that person, and in whatever roles and formats that takes, whether that's more books, documentaries, speaking, podcast, whatever medium, I'm going to continue using my voice in as many ways as possible.
Let's just go back to the dark moment for a minute, if you don't mind. I've been there, and I think a lot of people have been in those moments. And you were 11 years old, and you were thinking about suicide, which actually, as a parent, scares me, makes me sad to think about that. How do you pull yourself out of that? Depression, it can be so difficult to deal with. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot, and what happens is people isolate when they're depressed too. So you don't have support. You're feeling alone. You're in that moment, where you're thinking about the value of your own life, and you've devalued it to a point that you want to just go away. And this is a real problem, and we're going to be seeing a lot more of this because of the pandemic. So
Yes.
What did you do? What are you seeing for support mechanisms in your experience that are helpful to really get out of that place, so that you can get to this higher level where you are talking about elevating the mindset and living an amplified life and being your authentic self? But when you're in that space, it can be so difficult.
Yeah.
How'd you get out of it?
You bring up such a incredibly vital point now more than ever, the pandemic of loneliness that is also coming with all that has unfortunately graced the world in the last few months. And that definitely is, I think, the most prevalent problem of what depression causes you to do, is disconnect. And it makes you think that you are all alone. And even if you have a loving family or friends or whoever it is, you still feel like you're trapped on an island with nobody around. And so the first piece of advice that I want to give is to anybody that sees somebody that you love in crisis, or you think they are in a dark place, the most important thing that you can do is to be there for them, to just offer space, offer support, offer to listen. And as difficult as that can be, and is ultimately going to be, when you're helping somebody walk through that period of their life, which clearly is one of the most painful and devastating experiences that many people will ever have. And so it's truly about reminding those that we love the most that they're not alone ever, even when they appear to be thriving and doing really well, because now more than ever that has especially been the case. And I just want to remind everybody the story of Tony Hsieh, somebody that had absolutely everything and more, and yet during this time it was so overwhelming and it was so devastating for even him, and nobody is immune to that. And so we also need to give ourselves the space to recognize that we are all dealing with shit that none of us ever could have imagined dealing with. And I don't know your personal circumstance, to whoever's listening, but I know that you could relate to feeling overwhelmed, to feeling fearful, anxious, uncertain. And everybody's talking about self-care, self-care this, self-care that. But it's not a privilege anymore. It is a priority. And we can't wait until things get bad, or we're feeling overwhelmed to care for ourselves as much as we care for our physical health and eat well and exercise and all those things. So just needless to say, now more than ever, your emotional and mental and spiritual well-being, taking care of it and elevating it, has never been more vital. And it is a gift that you're not only going to give for yourself, but also it's giving a gift to the world around you, to your family, to your friends, to your teammates, because you're able to show up as a better leader, a better dad, a better friend, better human. And I think that's what we all want.
I think you've got such a gift, Brandon, and you go through your own shit, right? And you've been able to come out the other side with perspective. And this is a word you used earlier, and I was like, do I want to go there? And I don't think we can have a talk about courage without bringing it up. So I kind of feel like I have to. But like you said the word disability earlier. Like, do you feel like you have a disability?
I do. Yeah.
And so I'm like, this is, I was like, as you were chatting, I'm looking up the definition of disability, and a physical or mental condition that limits a person's movements, senses, or activities. And then I was like, interesting. Like, disability doesn't mean debilitated.
Right.
Right. To me, debilitated means make someone weak. And I don't sense that's what's sitting in front of us. So
exactly.
You see those differently as well?
So I completely agree with that. And the reason why I am so quick to consider myself disabled is because this is a huge part of my identity. This is not my entire identity. I am not solely somebody with dwarfism, but I can't try and deny the fact that I am who I am. And so if I say, no, I don't feel like I have a disability because I'm so empowered, or because I'm 10 feet tall or whatever, that would be bullshit and not a lie, because I'm living in a world that's not built for somebody like me. And so I do feel disabled every day because of that, but it is entirely in my mindset and how I choose to let that dictate how I show up and who I show up as.
So you took on Virginia. Are you taking on other states, or like what's next?
DC is next. Like I'm going to the big dogs. Um, I've been hesitant for obvious reasons to, in the last 4 years, try and get into that. That's all I'm gonna say. And so now
Well done. Well done.
and now I'm just looking forward to being able to make progress that needs to effing be made. Um, it's just crazy how behind we still are with social media and laws with hate speech and cyberbullying and all of these things. And so as literally as much as I can do, and whether that's advocating directly through my story or forming an advisory council or hell, even forming my own organization in order to make shit happen, I will absolutely do that. So I'm going to the top, and I'll also go to the middle along the way with other states, hopefully being able to work with them.
Seems like the best time to do it
Yes.
with everything going on in the country, the world. And, I was thinking about something while you were talking, just that without struggle, I don't think any of us get to the other side. So maybe you can just elaborate a little bit about how you've embraced the struggle and how it helped you get over the hump.
I think it's in the moments of adversity and struggle that we grow the most. And obviously there's a lot of irony in me saying that, but that truly is where I've experienced the most amount of personal growth, in the moments that I felt like, when I was physically in the moment, they were so utterly overwhelming, and I didn't feel like I'd be able to move past it. But it's through going through it that and getting to see that you actually are strong enough, you are courageous enough to get to the other side, and understanding that you've had everything that you needed to get to right where you are. And when we think about the amount of adversity, the amount of things that we've overcome, like, holy shit, we're unstoppable. And clearly we're here for a reason. No matter what your spiritual beliefs are, for you to be put here day after day, despite all of the things that have led you to be in moments of heartbreak and devastation and pain and suffering, but yet you're still here. And so I think, Ryan, that's just a really powerful way of framing. It's in those moments, and it's in the struggle that we learn our strength, and we learn our bravery and what we really have inside. And so as much as we try and avoid the struggle, avoid the pain, it is very necessary.
I feel the freedom that comes from it. Like the minute you get through it, you're like, okay, what else you got?
Yeah.
And then it's like,
100%.
I think the bet, I speak fluent metaphor. So like the one I like the most on this is, it's kind of like a slingshot. Like how far down can you go, and like resilient and grit it out before that thing flies.
Yeah.
And then off you go. And so I love hearing that you're off to DC on the next. And by the way, I've got lawyers in DC, so if you need any help, let me know. I got some people there. And it's just so awesome the way that the world works, that we even met on a sidewalk in San Diego, even though I knew your story, and you let me do what I did to bombard that conversation, and continue to root for you, Brandon, and however we can help, we're down. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Means a ton, Ryan, and the other Ryan as well. Great to meet you, and just immensely grateful and appreciative for the platform.
Brandon, be good, man. Say hi to everybody.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Go Maryland. Bye.
If you enjoyed the episode, please give us 5 stars, subscribe, and leave us a comment.